everybody. So we are so excited here for episode 7 of our Talking Disney podcast. And this is where we come together once a month and we talk about a Disney classic, and it is completely random. And this time the random number generator was not kind to us, and we have to talk about the 45th Disney animated feature film, Home on the Range. And my friend Stanford, I'm Rachel, and my friend Stanford is here to talk about this animated classic from Disney.
In quotations.
Yeah. So this is going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Thanks for inviting me back, Rach.
Anytime. So this movie came out in 2004. It was kind of in the dark days of Disney animation.
Dark days.
Yes. And so we're going to dive in and talk about it. So did you see this movie in the theater?
I did. I saw it in the theater. Oh my gosh. And wow. Yeah. There was some buildup and anticipation about it because, they were pretty clear. Disney was pretty clear about this is their last quote unquote hand-drawn animated film for, maybe for forever, and so I was excited. I was excited to see it. But yeah, then about 30 seconds into it, I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah, I know what part you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I mean, I did not see it in theaters because at that point in my life, so I was 23 in 2004. And I was actually on my mission in 2004.
Okay, so yeah.
So I missed this film. And I didn't actually see it until I was doing my canon review for my blog. And I kind of had to see it because I'd heard such bad things. And I think actually the first time I saw it, I was probably a little bit nicer to it. I mean, I was still towards the bottom of my ranking, but I was a little bit nicer to it because I'd heard how horrible it was. But then on my second time, it actually ended up being at the bottom of my ranking, and things that I had given it a pass for weren't as impressive on my second watch.
Yeah. And
I think it also kind of helped hurt on my second watch. My sister Madeline, she's the one who's 19, my sister, she was there with me, and I was, because she was just over, and I was like, I have to watch this for my, because I was doing at that point a video every single week on the Disney canon. I was like, I have to watch this, and so and she was just like, what are you making? What is this?
What is this movie?
I don't know. Her sort of pointing out, what? I can't believe they said that. I feel like that also kind of made me realize, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, this movie is really bad, and we're going to talk about kind of why. And I did send an email to the director and invite him to come on and just do an interview where we'd be perfectly nice. And I didn't get any response, but it's not our desire to be mean to these people.
Oh, heavens no. And we love Disney, and we love Disney. I mean, yeah.
But I think that you are not doing anybody any service when if you're a fan of something, you have to be honest. And and we're going to try to point out some positives and different things. And we realize that it takes a lot of work and a lot of artists and a lot of things to make any movie. But you gotta be real. Otherwise nobody grows or improves.
Yeah.
So
amen.
That's right. So I did not see this in theaters.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and then I can't remember when. Maybe I tried to watch it again when it came out on DVD, and then I rewatched it in 2011, and that was the last time I saw it. When I did my, Disney canon blogging, I watched every every film up to that point in 2011, starting with Snow White and ending with it was with Winnie the Pooh. Actually, was the last that year. 2011.
Well, I tell you,
I haven't seen it since.
I tell you, it was a good thing that I was on my mission in 2004 because it was a rough year for animation. Very rough.
A horrible year. Yeah.
Thank goodness for The Incredibles.
Yeah.
And Shrek 2 is pretty decent for the Shrek movies.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. But that was also the year of Shark Tale. And I'm curious, which one would you rather watch? Shark Tale or Home on the Range?
None of the above, none of the above. Shark Tale is horrible, I think, too.
Shark Tale is... I feel like I would rather watch Home on the Range because...
I like the animation better on Home on the Range.
I like the animation better, and it's not as mean-spirited. I feel like Shark Tale is actually kind of mean-spirited, the way that the Will Smith fish character is just kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
And so there we go. You also had the Polar Express in 2004, which was good. I mean, the animation's, not for everybody, but I like it. I think it's good. And you have the Spongebob movie, which was actually pretty decent, I think. And Howl's Moving Castle came out in 2004 in Japan. It didn't come out until 2005 in the United
US.
States. So that's when it got nominated for the Oscar, is in 2005. There's also Teacher's Pet movie.
Yeah.
And that's about it for that year. It was one of the years where there were only 3 films nominated for Best Animated Oscars, and that they did nominate Shark Tale, which is just I mean, I don't know why they didn't. I guess they didn't consider Polar Express animation because motion capture,
right? Because of the motion capture.
But they had just nominated Monster House, which is the same technology as far as I understand.
Right.
So I don't know where they got that division, but I definitely think that SpongeBob is better than Shark Tale. That's for sure. So I don't know what they were thinking with that. I mean, wow.
Who knows?
Woo! But it was kind of just ridiculous because everyone knew Incredibles was going to win because it was the best. So there you go. Anyway, so that was the year it came out. And so what did you think on this rewatch? Like, what was your experience?
Well, it was worse than I because it was bad. And it was, it didn't. I really tried to be open-minded about it again, and it was worse. It was. I thought it was worse than the film. But again, the stuff that came back are the things that I guess thinking about when I saw it in 2004. I was so excited about it because I just thought it was so cool that Disney Animation was going to do a Western.
Uh-huh.
What a fun idea to have an animated Western, and so. In concept, I think it's a great idea, but wow, the execution, as we're going to be diving into, was not good.
Yeah, I think if you want a good anime or decent, at least animated Western, I think I actually think that Puss in Boots is pretty entertaining. I like it. And just because I think that Puss in Boots is the best Shrek character by far. And I actually think that Antonio Banderas is one of the most inspired voice casting in animation. I really think that was brilliant. I like that one. A lot of people like Rango. I'm not a fan of it personally.
I don't really like Rango that much either.
Yeah, a lot of people like it.
I respect it. I just didn't.
That's fair. Also, I thought a lot in this movie about the Buffalo Bill, the short in Melody Time.
Uh-huh.
with the Pecos Bill. You're right, Pecos Bill. Just in the vistas and the way that things, some of the animation, I think, but that's obviously much better and much funnier.
Yeah,
Pecos Bill. So that would be a good one to check out. Is watch Melody Time. It's good. So anyway, so there you go. Yeah, I like the idea, but I feel like it's such a strange choice because evidently if you follow the history of this movie, basically Michael Eisner was sort of towards the end of his tenure, and he was and him and many of these executives were making these choices, and they didn't see animation as an art form. They were seeing it more as as a business, which is fine and understandable. They wanted to make sort of this like Emperor's New Groove kind of wacky movie about Western comedy. But the executives wanted it to be a movie for toddlers that would appeal to really, really little kids. And it's so strange to me. Like, I understand, like, I'm not a fan of Brother Bear, but I understand it intellectually because kids have bears, like kids have teddy bears, like make a movie about a bear. What? Like, kids don't like Westerns. Kids don't like cows. Like, there's not like people are nestling at home with their cow doll. Like, what? Like, I don't understand why they thought that this would be a big seller for little children.
That is really interesting to hear, Rachel, because I'm with you. It seems like almost like this would be more for an older demographic.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I think.
Because as I was saying, my enthusiasm for it was because I like Westerns. I think Westerns are a great genre, and how interesting for Disney Animation to try to take it on. And so. Yeah, that's fascinating. You can really tell that was another thing I was really noticing too, because we hear about those final days in the Michael Eisner era, how the poor movie, the poor people working on these movies, they had to take notes from everybody, and then try to integrate people's input on it, and so you just never really had a clear vision, I think, on these films because there were so many people providing input that they had to somehow implement. And it's just, it just makes for a real incoherent mess rather than one that really has a clear narrative vision, and a really compelling story. It's like, just kind of annoying character and annoying joke, one after another. Which I think is indicative of the time period and the process. Yeah. Right,
exactly. And I guess it started out as this movie called Sweating Bullets.
Sweating Bullets, yes.
Yeah. And that it was originally going to be this sort of supernatural Western about a timid cowboy who visits a ghost town and confronts an undead cattle hustler named Slim. And then it went through different variations and they were going to have it be about a bull, I guess, at one point, and then finally it got, and it started. This was like in 1998, so there was quite a journey for it, and I think that Alan Menken was signed on to write the music in 1998.
Oh wow! So he'd been on it early. That's one thing I wondered about too, if when they brought Alan Menken on. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it says here, so shortly after winning the Richard Rodgers New Horizons Award, lyricist Glenn Slater was brought to the attention of Menken, who later invited Slater to work with him on Sweating Bullets. And so they wrote this first of the film's 6 songs back in 1999. The first was Little Patch of Heaven. And then I guess one of the songs they didn't write until after 2000, they didn't write until after 9/11. The Will the Sun Ever Shine Again song they wrote after 9/11.
Okay.
So
which should make sense because you really get that melancholy.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had eventually, they focused on this idea of these 3 cow protagonists who would become bounty hunters to save the farm, and that's when they brought on, I guess in 2000, Mike Gabriel, co-director Mike Gaimo were removed from the project because of the persistent story problems. So this thing was just a nightmare. And then finally, they brought on Will Finn, who had been a supervising animator. He had been and still is an animator, and he had worked a lot on Hunchback of Notre Dame. In the past, he had worked on many films. His first looked like his start was as an animator for Don Bluth, The Secret of Nim, Dragon's Lair, these kinds of things. And then he was a character animator in Oliver and Company and in The Little Mermaid, and just a number of Rescuers Down Under, storyboard artist, character animator, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Return to Jafar. Anyway, he's an animator, and and it just says additional sequences. So I guess he wasn't the director of The Road to El Dorado on here, but anyway, he was brought on to direct Home on the Range, and since then he has done some shorts. He did The Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return, which is rough.
Yeah.
Woo!
That's right. When was that? Was that 2016, 2015?
That was 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay. That really made an impact on me. Yeah.
Oh, did you see it in the theater?
No.
Oh, man. Poor Will Finn. I kind of feel bad for the guy. But,
I know, and I was wishing he could join in, because I would love to hear if he would be willing to share just the history of it, because
I would too.
Talking about, not that Sweating Bullets necessarily sounded like a great story, but definitely better than what they ended up with.
Yeah.
But still, if he could, it'd be so interesting to hear some of the history of the progression of this story and how the film ultimately got made. Because again, I think that was really the big thing for me, Rachel, rewatching it. Like, I can't believe they made it. I can't believe this thing.
That's right.
That they actually decided to complete it, because
it really should have been scrapped. Like, it really, I put this time on my letterbox, I just put, this movie might have ruined yodeling for me.
Yeah, good point. Whiskey.
But anyway, so yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we made it a goal before we rewatched this movie that we were each going to find 3 positive things. And so as we go through, we're going to talk about those 3 positive things. And we'll be very curious if you guys, maybe you love it, and let us know. Let us know your thoughts. And especially if it's one you watched as a little kid, I would be very curious to know what your thoughts were. So it starts out the movie with you have Maggie is the Roseanne Barr cow. And she is the only cow left at her ranch. And so they are, I guess all 500 of these cows have been stolen. And so Mr. Dixon sells Maggie to Pearl. And so here's a problem I have right now. This is the very first scene of the movie. It makes no sense, because why on earth would she buy a prized show cow, which supposedly Maggie is, if she's just about to go under and has no money? And like a prized show cow is worth, like, even now is worth many thousands of dollars. And she definitely is enough to pay off this mortgage or whatever it is. And she acts like, oh, I can't sell. They're like family. She literally just bought it this weekend. Like, what?
I know, it's so problematic. So the film starts, and I instantly, I was so happy to see again the gorgeous animation, and they show one of those vistas as an animated vista of Monument Valley.
Yeah.
Which, you in Utah and Arizona. So, and it's wonderful. And it looks like, again, it's like an animated like a John Ford film, the way that they compose the shot. And then you cut to this Roseanne Barr thing, and it's just like, oh dear. And I'm with you. It's like, it's very illogical on how this is working. I mean, it sets up that, Pearl is a kind-hearted, good woman who loves her animals, and they love her,
Yeah.
But still, it doesn't make any sense.
It really makes no sense, because then later on she's offering to sell the chickens for buy 3 get 1 free.
Yeah.
Or buy 1 get 3 free, and it's like, you had a show.
Right.
Like, what? And I mean, it's not like people are gonna like immediately kill these cows. Like, they're dairy cows. Like, if you're selling them, like what? Anyway, I know it's over like trying to play logic to this silly movie, but
it was,
like
right off the bat, you're just
right
like,
off the bat.
What is this?
But this makes no sense. Also, how the heck does somebody steal 500 cattle without any of the cowboys or without anybody? And the fact he's also singing, you know what I mean? Like, this is very loud and would like make tons of noise. Like, I can't even imagine how many cattle that is. Like, what is Mr. Dixon doing?
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. Like, what? Like, does he hypnotize the humans too?
Right. The humans are in this deep sleep and they can't hear any of this stuff.
What?
Going on. Yeah. It's confusing.
And then, but even all of that could be ignored. That's fine. Whatever. But we get the Roseanne Barr cow, Maggie. One of her first lines of dialogue is, "They're real.
They're real. Yeah, they're real. Yeah." And
what?
And then and it just goes on from there. There's all these horrible cow puns. I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I saw the same thing. Like, this is your opening line.
Like, if you're really making this film for toddlers, do we really want to joke about artificial breast augmentation, whatever they call it? Like, what?
I know. So
I mean, it just is like, ooh, I feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is so terrible. Like, I mean, just things like, what's her specialty? Sour cream? Like, what? And I don't know. And then later on, they say to the horse, to Buck, he says, well, if it isn't the phony express, like, oh my gosh. Like, it's just so bad. You're just like, what?
I know.
Like, I honestly think that it's just so weird, because if they were trying to appeal to toddlers, why is it so crass? And why is it so like,
it is. It really is pretty crass, because again, it just felt like it was really tinged with Roseanne's trademark humor.
Yeah.
And that her humor is bad, but it's not meant for a family film.
Yeah. Like, if I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, something that would appeal to toddlers is like Dora.
Yeah.
Which isn't Western, but it's kind of an adventure or whatever. And it's like very sweet. No, I've got the map. Yay. Let's go. And let's go on an adventure and whatever.
Right. Rather than, Roseanne talking about her udders, It's like,
what? It was bizarre. So, it gets off to a bad note. But then,
instantly.
Yes. But we do have the not saving grace because it doesn't save it, but one of my definitely best things about the movie is the songs. Alan Menken, his score is also quite fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun score. I agree, really fun. I'm with you. The music and the score by Alan Menken are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get Little Patch of Heaven,
which I love. That sequence I think is probably the best sequence in the film.
I think so too.
Again, not that would be hard. It would be, but it's legitimately charming. I mean, because the song is great. K.D. Lang
is a good singer.
She's such a good singer and was a perfect choice for that. She just interprets that song.
Yeah.
Just she nails it. And the animation's cute. I thought it's a fun way to introduce the characters.
Yeah.
On the farm. And Patch of Heaven is clearly the emotional core of the film. Pearl and the farm, but and I really like the character designs. That's one of the things I like about it too, because it feels like a 1950s cartoon. The way that they did it was pretty simple, really, just like these solid colors and very stylized. But I thought, oh, this is good, because I think one of the first things I saw about the film was they were promoting just some concept art from it, and it was the lineup of the farm animals. I thought, oh, that's so cool. I love the design of the pigs, and everything looks so great. And then they start talking, and you're just like, oh dear, because all of them have just it's just one horrible line after another. The song ends, and then they're back to the lousy script. And
it can't be denied. It is absolutely correct. Yeah. And the song is sweet, and that's just what they should have done. For this thing should have been very sweet, and instead it's just not. And they get this whole plot of this save the farm, literally save the farm thing, and I hate that trope. It can be done. That story can be done well, but trust me, I watch 95 Hallmark movies a year, and so many of them are about
use that.
Save the store, save the restaurant, save the whatever, many, many times. And it's just so boring.
Yeah.
It's so obvious that they're going to be able to do it. And the only way with any trope, to be fair, any trope that you have, it works if like the characters are good and the dialogue is good. And, but it's very hard to pull off. And I was trying to think of, what would be a save the whatever that kind of pulled it off. I mean, you have, I'm trying to think, you have elements of it in like, trying to think. I mean, there's kind of elements of it in the Cars movies with Radiator Springs kind of going down the hill, but I wouldn't say it's a Save the Barn movie. But I don't know. It's just rough.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to pull off that kind of an element. It's just so predictable. It's tough.
Can we talk about these 3 cows, Rachel? Because that's one of the things. So clearly we meet Roseanne. But then her other 2 cohorts on the farm, with the dairy cows.
There's Grace that's Jennifer Tilly.
That's voiced by Jennifer Tilly.
I would say another strength of the movie. I think she's good. She's just a good voice actress.
Well, I love her voice. I thought it was a really good choice. I don't like the words they gave her to say.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we've got Mrs. Sorry, remind me of the name again.
What's her name? Mrs. Calloway.
Thank you, Mrs. Calloway. I've got it written down.
Which none of the humans question the fact that she has a hat. Like, what?
Yeah, she's wearing a hat, and she's British. I mean, I think again, not. Again, it's a cartoon. I don't want to be too picky, but I remember thinking this in 2004. Thought, here we are. We've got these, Roseanne, Judi Dench, and Jennifer Tilly, who in and of themselves, I mean, they're all good at what they do, right?
Right.
But to try to, and I know that the writers were trying to bring conflict to them, because that's part of the thing is that the three of them, Roseanne is new to the group and is kind of turned really bossy, right, and kind of taking over.
Yeah.
And there's this power struggle and whatnot. But I just none of it works for me. I think, again, I love Jennifer Tilly's voice. I really don't necessarily like that they made her this new age kind of person, because I'm also thinking, this is like a Western set in the 18 whatever. This, I mean, again, I know I'm overthinking it, but this new age stuff didn't even exist,
Plus,
they're talking cows, but still.
Yeah. Plus, if you're going to have one character that's a prized show cow, right?
Yeah.
Would it make more sense to make the British uptight one?
That was exactly it. That's my next thing is like, why are you making kind of crass blue collar Roseanne as the show cow, and then Mrs. Calloway that we don't really know why? I mean, we guess she came from Britain,
Well, you could have her be the uptight, like Fraser Crane kind of character, whatever. That's fine. And it makes sense then that she's not going to want to sell her because she's had her for all this time and whatever, and she loves her. That's fine. And then she gets this second-rate cow from this farmer, like, and then she comes in and is, it's like a Buzz Lightyear coming in to spoil the fun.
Right.
And so that makes way more sense. It makes no sense for Mrs. Calloway to be the stick in the mud, but not the show cow. Like,
yeah, it's really baffling.
What?
And I also think too, again, these three cows were in a way kind of meant to be pitted against each other, but still, there's no chemistry between these.
Oh no!
And again, I fault the script because they just all have stupid things to say to each other. It's just but here they are though. They're the protagonists. They're the ones to root for. And not that I wanted them to die, but I just wanted. But there was just nothing appealing about this dynamic between these three cows. I didn't care.
Yeah, it is so frustrating when I feel like people think that making a movie for children to be funny is just characters arguing all the time. Why on earth is this still a thing? Like, it was so frustrating. A movie like Angry Birds, which had honestly actually a lot of potential. Like the animation was decent. It had good, had good stuff, a lot of good ingredients, but unfortunately, most of the jokes in that movie are people fighting. And it's not entertaining to me at all. Like, I don't want to see that. And it's just so frustrating when it's like, especially if I'm talking about little children, I want them, like, in the old Disney movies, you would have like one cantankerous character. Like in Winnie the Pooh, obviously you have you have Rabbit is the cantankerous one, and the one who but he always has like a reason, and it's always clear. He's not like, there's many times when he's picking vegetables, he's happy as can be. When he first starts skating on the ice, he's happy as can be. And so it's not just like, I don't know, it's not just like arguing all the time as a character as supposed to be funny, and I hate that. It's awful.
No, I hear you, absolutely. And that got really frustrating. I mean, instantly. It's because and then it's just, they fight the whole movie. They kind of there is some kind of a point later, where they come together, but not really. It's not like they necessarily have a reconciliation. They're just like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do this. And then they start.
Well, it's not even. It's just like with Miss Calloway, she just like changes on a dime, and all of a sudden is like, we are getting on that train and we are riding it home and blah 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 and whatever. It's fine, but like, it comes out of nowhere, and then you just have other characters that they fight with and they argue with, like Buck, that are just annoying and frustrating. And And yeah, the character design I think is fine in Patch of Heaven. And I don't even really hate the design of the cows because, like, what can you do with cows? Like, cows are just not like what? They're fine.
I kind of liked it. Again, question the hat, but but overall, but yeah, it's fun. I mean,
the character design of the humans is so horrible. I hate it. Like, I guess the Pearl is fine, but the other character designs are terrible. I hate, like, the Steve Buscemi character looks terrible. The sheriff character, and then we'll talk about the Alameda Slim.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. Rico, I hate his design. Like, I don't even understand what they were trying to do with Rico. Like,
Rico was puzzling to me too.
Like, it's obviously trying to be Clint Eastwood.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
But, like, again, if you're making this movie for toddlers, what toddler watches Clint Eastwood? Like, what children watch Clint Eastwood?
Exactly. So we meet Buck, the sheriff's horse.
Yeah.
Voiced by Cuba Gooding Jr. And again, I'm thinking, oh, cool, because I like Cuba Gooding Jr.,
Sure.
Jerry Maguire, Cuba Jr. Would be awesome.
Yeah.
The most annoying character. Again, I fought the script. It's just horrible. But the only thing I liked about Buck, and it's one of the things I liked about the film too, is there's like a 90-second sequence where we meet Buck and we're learning about his motivations. Buck has got high aspirations about what he wants to do as a law enforcement horse, right? And you see that scene where they shrink that, and then they change the aspect ratio. So it looks widescreen, and it's looking like a Sergio Leone Western.
Yeah.
And they just, he's fighting the bad guys, and it's fun. Again, it's like 90 seconds to 2 minutes of just kind of a fun little homage, which again, I was hoping that the whole film would be like, that way. That's the only segment I like of him, and then everything else it goes downhill too.
And like the fun little homages is fine, but like when you have a whole character that's so obviously trying to be, Clint Eastwood, it's just kind of like, what? Like, what were they trying to do? Like, it was so obvious from the very beginning that Rico was bad. We know that just from even the lighting on the character. It's so obvious.
I know.
There's never a second where you think, oh, he's really a good guy here. Like, what? And so, and I agree about Buck. He's terrible, horrible. And so they find out once they get into town, there's this really weird scene with the cows in the saloon.
So again, a typical Western trope where there has to be a saloon fight, right? And how they set that up was so dumb. So the cows, they're like thinking that the stage door is the sheriff because there's a star on it, right? So like, it's this.
Yeah.
So they walk in, and of course, then they become part of this burlesque show that's going on at the in the saloon.
Yeah.
And
there's all these men like hooting and hollering, like what?
It's like they're cows.
It's like cows are really smelly, and they're really like. I can't even imagine, like, I mean, it's just, this is for, like, I can't imagine this writing room. Like, what? They're like, the executives are saying, like, we want to make a movie for toddlers, so put in your Clint Eastwood character and
put in
your
saloon
in the saloon with cows. Like, what?
Yeah, you just can't believe it. That's such a horrible sequence, and I hated it the first time I saw it, and my feelings got worse. I just thought it's so bad.
It's so bad.
Because I've seen a lot of westerns since I saw this, the first time too, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, and then there's like the really weird random scene with like the weird Chinese guy.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, what is that?
Where did that come from?
Like, and because I'm assuming they cut things out or something because, like, it just sort of feels, like, really awkward.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And so, it's just, and then they are, because originally they're going to, like, try to go to the fair or something.
Yes. Thinking that at the fair they'll be able to, like get get in good with the sheriff, right? That is going to help them.
Well, and I don't know why Pearl didn't just make this point. Like, I've just bought this show cow. Like, I'm going to talk to the bank. Because, like, evidently she's like, oh, they're always fine with me being late. No problem. And so, like, why she didn't just say, hey, the fair's in 2 weeks. I've got this show cow. Come on. Like, you know, there's a chance to even make more money, whatever. Like, what's up with Pearl? And,
Yeah.
but they get there and into town, and they find out that there's this $750 reward for the finding of this guy Alameda Slim. And Alameda Slim, oh my gosh, hello, like, what is going on with Alameda Slim? Like, the idea that any human being would not know that Yancey Odell is Alameda Slim is just like beyond anything. Like, what? Like, is there a worse villain in Disney history than Alameda Slim?
Oh, you know,
his character design is abhorrent. He looks terrible. He looks like a giant rectangle. I mean, I guess the voice performance is fine. It's not the fault.
It's Randy Quaid, and he's got a distinctive voice, but you know, as you're saying, how they hijack, how they steal these cows, you know, from these farms that they want to take over, is that he yodels and he hypnotizes them with the yodel.
And I think there's some creativity in that, and I actually,
it's so crazy that it could be funny, but it sure doesn't work.
Yeah, like, I kind of like the yodeling scene where you see, like, it sort of has a little bit of an Elephants on Parade feel. Yes. Like, it's the one moment in the movie where I feel like the animators' creativity is really kind of coming out, and they're doing something surrealist, they're doing something weird, but it doesn't quite work. And I don't know, maybe if the rest of the movie had been strong enough. I guess I give the yodeling a pass because even though I said in my review that it ruined yodeling for me, I feel like at least it's creative, but yeah, it's just so ridiculous and weird, and it's not funny, and so it's just like, and yeah, because, like, supposedly he is able to yodel in a way that hypnotizes these cows, and it makes the cows come towards him. And you know, it's like he's supposedly done this in the entire county because he felt like spurned or something like that. And then he goes off, once the cows are gone, he goes and buys the land for like super cheap.
Yeah.
As this other guy, Yancey Odell, which is like way too complicated, first of all, for like a child's film.
Right. That was the one thing too, because this plot gets so convoluted.
Yeah, like kids don't understand, like, like land purchases and like auctions and what and mortgage. Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. And like, I mean, I think the worst. I mean, I really, really hate Radcliffe in Pocahontas just because he's a real person. But obviously he's worse. Alameda Slim is worse than Radcliffe, but like, and Buck Cluck in Chicken Little, I think, is actually a real villain. We'll talk about that when we do Chicken Little. Yeah. And he's terrible. And I don't think there's necessarily anything like really mean-spirited about Alameda Slim. He's just so lame.
Yeah, he's one of those villains that in concept there might have been some potential.
Yeah.
And some comedic potential with the yodeling and different things, but it really falls flat.
I mean, and it's seriously, if one of these places had, one of these farms or whatever, ranches, I guess, had 500 cattle, and supposedly he's storing all of these cattle in this cave, like, how big is that cave? Like, what?
Right. And what do they do about the tracks is what I thought.
Like, what is going on with this sheriff? Like,
thousands of tracks going to this canyon.
Yeah. Like, if somebody was selling, first of all, if somebody had just stolen not just 500 cattle from one place, the entire map he'd done this to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, if somebody was selling 500 cattle onto a train, like, and 500 cattle had been missing. Like, I mean, I'm no sheriff, but like, he's like, what? It just makes no sense, and it's so dumb, and
it makes no sense. And then, the involvement with what's his bucket, the Clint Eastwood, that whole
that he's supposed to be this bounty hunter, but he's really not. Like, he's a really bad guy.
He's in cahoots with Alameda Slim, and it's just like, what kid is gonna? That's what I thought again. What child is gonna see this and enjoy it? I mean, they might enjoy some of the visuals, because the visuals are interesting, but
I just don't think so. I don't think kids are really interested in. There's just nothing like lovable. Like kids I think like stuff that's like really interactive. Mm-hmm. Like something like Dora, where they can be like, get the map, Dora. That's what makes that so brilliant.
Yeah.
Or something that's like cute and fun, and this is just not. And I just think kids will just be bored. I think they'll like Little Patch of Heaven sequence. I think they could watch that as a short or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you just show your kids Melody Time. Like, it's
watch Pecos Bill. That's their animated Western. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and then you have this incredibly uncomfortable scene where the cows go to a farm that is going to a ranch that is going to be taken, and all the bulls are like super like creepy and gross and like awful, and like,
they're being super aggressive.
What is that? Like, I was so like what?
Yeah, because again, it's just like these horrible jokes, and they're not even jokes. It's like these bulls they're using these pickup lines, right? And then Roseanne is of course snapping back with her kind of trademark crass humor, and you're just like, what's happening here? It's just
like they're like sexually harassing the cows. Like, it's terrible. Like, what is going on?
It's like, what is happening? Yeah.
And like, there's even a line where she's Roseanne, or Maggie says, "I've got 3 words for you: cold shower." Like, what?
I know. Because again, the humor is just, it's edgy, and that's another thing. And I'm
like, that's like super inappropriate, and like it's just.
I wondered if some of it's one of those again where I wish we could talk to Will or somebody.
Yeah.
Tell us that was that like actually storyboarded, or was somebody like. This is Roseanne spewing off in the recording studio, and they're like, "Oh, we should, this is funny. We should, go off with some of these things that Roseanne is saying." I wondered about that, and I didn't like it in 2004, and I definitely don't like it in 2018.
And Roseanne, like, I know she's a controversial character. She can be very funny.
She can be funny. I mean,
she can be absolutely hilarious.
She's got kind of this trademark humor that she's good at, and that there's I think there's comedic potential. I don't think casting her was necessarily a bad choice. I think the words that they let her say and then what they chose to animate was a bad choice.
And making her the lead character. I think that you're always
a better supporting character.
Yeah. And I think that this would have been so much better if like a character like the rabbit had been the lead character. Like, rabbits are cute, they're fluffy, they're fun. Like, a cow is just not. And like, you could have had these 3 cows being kind of like going on the journey with like this little rabbit or something like that. Would have been way better.
Can we talk about that rabbit too? Because he shows up in like the first sequence. I mean, the film starts. They're showing that as mentioned that Monument Valley, that wonderful shot that they established, and then the rabbit shows up, and then it's kind of like goes into kind of almost like a Looney Tunes mode where the rabbit's just having kind of mishap after mishap. And it's kind of funny, but it's jarring.
Like,
and you don't see him again until the middle of the film.
No, it's like he should be called Exposition Rabbit, because his whole role is to like periodically appear to give exposition.
Yeah, to like give exposition, like, this is really what's happening, kids.
Yeah. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. And I mean, I was trying to think, like, what's an example of a character that Roseanne could have played that would have been like better. I mean, she certainly could have been a character like Rabbit in Winnie the Pooh. That's kind of sort of frustrated and like kind of exasperated by Pooh's antics, and that could have worked.
That could have worked, and giving her jokes and kind of like snide comebacks that aren't sexualized.
Yeah,
that's like. Yeah.
Cold shower is just so like what? Showers.
And that they're real,
Yeah, right?
Like
what?
What? I was even thinking that.
Out of control. So basically they go after him, and then there's totally the moment, which is so predictable in all these Save the Barn kind of stories, where where the team is split up, and they have this big argument, which again, why is that entertaining to children? I don't know. And of course, then
horrible. That flash flood and all that argument also is like, oh, please.
And that's when they have the Will the Sun Ever Shine Again, which is such a pretty song.
I love that song. And Bonnie, they bring in Bonnie Raitt, who's a wonderful musician, wonderful singer.
Yeah.
And it's a great song. And then it's interesting to hear that it was written after 9/11, and it really expresses, I think, the melancholy and the sadness of that time period.
Yeah.
And that is stuck in this. I
know, it's a bummer.
it's used so poorly, and because it's the low point of the film. It's coming near the end of Act 2, and the cows are they're all fighting, and then they're stuck because of this flash flood, and they just look like there's not any hope anymore. And Pearl, she's the farm's going to be going away any minute, and all that stuff, but. Still, though, it's more just like I wanted to fast forward to it rather than appreciate the sadness, of the drama of the scene.
Yeah. I agree. I 100% agree with you there. So and then everything else plays out pretty predictably as far as there's you have Alameda with his goons.
And don't get me started on his goons. They are the most annoying.
Yeah, they are terrible.
Characters are terrible.
And Steve Buscemi's character is terrible and annoying. Like he could have been a better villain. But if he could have been a better villain. Yeah, I agree. But and you do have that. Grace is the only one of the cows that isn't susceptible to, because she's tone deaf.
She's tone deaf, so she doesn't get hypnotized with the yodeling.
Which again, little children toddlers just know all. they can totally understand that. Like,
right.
What?
Yeah. And then they go, and then the cave, where the cave where they're hiding the cows is like this abandoned mine. And again, I know that's kind of same thing, kind of a Western thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, then they get to animate the cows in the mine car, going up and down the hills, the roller coaster that's built into this cave, where you're just like, really,
Yeah. What's so interesting too, though, about this movie is that they are finally getting rid of the attraction at Disneyland that they had, because they had a little patch of heaven.
They had a petting zoo, a little mini petting zoo that they themed when this movie came out. Yeah, they had a wanted sign for Alameda Slim. It's all been removed. It's Star Wars Land.
Yeah,
is taking over. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is taking over from a little patch of heaven.
So yeah, that's the people who hate Disney Star Wars aren't. That's the one complaint you won't hear. It's taking over for the little patch of heaven. Yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, and then there is a sequence where they are on this train and they're riding the train, and I feel like that's been done a lot where, like, especially recently, like, can I just say no more animals or inanimate objects, whatever, riding cars. I'm done. I've seen that so many times, whether it's Secret Life of Pets or Finding Dory or like a ton of times I've seen that. And I guess it's done. We need a break. Like, no more. It's not funny anymore. Like, it could be marginally funny at first, but it's just not anymore. I'm done. And here you have cows driving a train, whatever. And I do think that the train, it looks pretty good. Like,
it's cool. It's cool design. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when it crashes and stuff, and like it crashes right into a little patch of heaven and tears up the whole, like, the farmland and everything.
Yeah.
Whatever. And yeah, and like supposedly, like this disguise, it's not even a disguise. Like he's just wearing a jacket.
Like, a jacket.
I don't understand. Like, it's a worse disguise than like Clark Kent. Like,
are you kidding me? You don't recognize this giant man, this giant rectangle in a coat.
Yeah, he has a jacket on. I mean, like, and especially back then, it's not like, I mean, you just didn't come in contact with all that many people.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, especially back then, it's not like you're in, like, New York City where you meet, like, thousands of people a day and you might mistake it. He looks exactly the same, and the whole idea that, like, oh, his gig is up and spoiled is so ridiculous.
It's problematic.
And it's problematic. It's so bad. So, but he's taken away, and I was gonna say, for a better, million times better example for the character of Buck, when you agree that Maximus is like a billion times better.
Million times better. Yeah, because again,
Maximus doesn't talk.
Right, which is a huge help because it's all done. Yeah, and that makes him an even stronger character because it all has to be done with his actions, and with the emotions that they're able to play. I'm with you. Maximus is just a million times better, and also with Buck, he wants to do kung fu, and you're just like, I never thought that the horse. I mean, again, there could be potentially some comedic stuff that they maybe thought was funny. It never was funny to me. Seeing him on his hind legs trying to do those kung fu actions, it was just beyond. It was
because it doesn't work because these aren't anthropomorphic characters. If they had, I think it actually could have been a little bit better if they had made them anthropomorphic characters, because that's just sort of cuter and like something like Puss in Boots is anthropomorphic. So, like, I don't know. It makes more sense to have a cat fencing and stuff like that. Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. When he's like, there's a scene where he's literally like leaps onto the roof of the saloon, and you're like, if that happened in real life, can you imagine if you were like walking by and there was like a horse on a building? Like, what? Whoa!
It's like horse on a building, cows on the stage doing the show,
Oh my gosh.
What's happening?
It's tough. It's tough. And there's just, and there are so many puns in this movie. It's just painful. And
because they're bad. Every one of those is a groaner. It's not like even one of them lands. That's the thing that I just can't believe is that, like, are you serious? She goes, who laughed at that? Like, who? who was, and again, maybe it was one of those Michael Eisner things, like, oh, you got to punch this up with some fun, make this funnier or whatever. But I don't know. It's sure none of those work. In fact, they're so pervasive and so not funny.
Yeah, like they just like lie as this thud. Like I don't know, just as an example, like Grace is singing, she'll be coming around the mountain, and Maggie says she'd better hurry up around that mountain because I can't take this much longer. That's not even a joke. It's not funny. It's not even a joke. It's just like pointing something out, but I think they think it's supposed to be a joke. And like the stuff with Alameda Slim and the goons, that's not funny. It's usually just like boring. And
it's boring because it's one of those where it could almost be like a Gaston and LeFou, where that works. Like the slapstick humor, I think, really works well in Beauty and the Beast. But then and not so much there's as much physical comedy between Alameda and his goons. But they're horrible. They've got that horrible voice. And, the animation is lousy. I think the design is lousy with those two characters.
Yeah. The human characters are almost all just terrible. They look horrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. As you said, yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's one scene with some vultures where Maggie says, we'd better get to town quickly. The vultures are circling. And Maggie says, hey, she's not dying. And the vulture says, you sure? We could wait around. That's kind of funny. Like, that's a little bit funny. But, like...
And Western, it works. It works for the environment.
But, man, you have to dig hard for anything that's funny. And I don't know. It's just brutal. And they, like... and even things like with the goat or the pig, like it's just kind of, usually it's like pointing things out, not actually making a joke. And then, you get the ending with, everything, the of course the farm is saved.
Yeah.
And but I had to wonder, like, so I guess you have to imagine like how many cattle we're talking about here. Like this would be, like, if one farm had 500 cattle, and you saw like the just in the cattle, the weird creepy bulls, that there were hundreds of cattle there.
Yes.
And this huge map, like what I don't know. So I guess they must have made all the other farms right and made everything good in the end. But we do at least know that Patch of Heaven ends up fine. And there you go. That's the end of the story. And but yeah, I especially just those bulls were just so weird. Like one saying like, don't worry, darling, I'll protect you. And then Miss Calloway saying, you've got exactly 2 seconds to remove your hoof before I snap it off at the knee. And then they say, oh, sorry, ma'am, I thought you were the blonde. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's just it's so weird. And again, that doesn't belong in a family film.
It does not belong in a family film, and it's like super offensive when you think about it. Like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, it's just like
so
weird and not funny.
No, not funny.
Not funny.
I'm offended for my blonde sisters. Those are just terrible. But anyway, I think we basically covered it. So my positive, I do think the making music is good. I actually like Jennifer Tilly. I think she's good. I guess her character isn't that great, but she's probably my favorite of the three if I had to pick. And then I think there's some nice backgrounds. That's my three. I think the idea of the yodeling is creative, and that one sequence with the song, I don't love it, but I feel like there's some creativity at least trying in there. But that's about it for me as far as things positive about this film.
Yeah, for me, as a bit of a repeat, but The concept was appealing. Again, thinking that this could be that Disney feature animation was going to tackle a Western. I just thought, oh, how cool. It didn't work, but the music as we've discussed throughout is enjoyable. I love that song at the end credits that Tim McGraw sings.
Yeah.
It's a terrific song. And again, it's an Alan Menken, a little gem, that I just think nobody probably heard because they just couldn't wait to get out of the theater, after.
Yeah, wherever the trail may lead.
Yeah, I love that song. Yeah. I love it. And I think the art direction is solid. The character design is great. And honestly, I love that opening shot. And then, it goes downhill instantly from there. But
yeah,
that great opening shot.
Yeah,
and the Patch of Heaven sequence.
Yeah,
that Patch of Heaven sequence is really is charming.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. So there we go. I think we've covered Home on the Range to all we can say. That's all there is to say. All right, so let's figure out what we're going to talk about next.
Okay,
here we go.
The random number generator.
Yes. Okay, 31. So let's figure out what's 30. 30.
We're in good stuff in that one.
Let's see here. 31 Disney animated film.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Aladdin.
Let's see. I'll just look up Aladdin then.
I could be wrong. I thought Beauty and the Beast was number 30. But let's see how my memory does. I could be wrong.
Yeah, 31, Aladdin.
Yes,
this will be great.
Oh, now we go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah. This is good. Yeah. So we yeah, it would have been rough if we had gotten Chicken Little next.
Or Dinosaur. I would have had to
Yeah, and originally I think I had this at I don't know, I think I had it 55. But on the rewatch, it's my lowest. It's my worst. It's the worst of the canon. I think it is worse than Chicken Little because I think that Chicken Little has some you can see them just throwing everything at the wall and just seeing if it'll stick. And some of that is kind of interesting. And some of the character designs I think are cute. It's a toss up. It's a pick your poison because I think Chicken Little, it's more mean spirited than this, but I don't know. It just has a little bit more creativity. I think this just feels so phoned in and lame and just not good. So
yeah, it's definitely in my bottom three.
Yeah.
I think it's better than Chicken Little too. We'll have to see how it's still see Dinosaur.
And that one is brutal. It's so boring.
The Dinosaur is so horrible. I'm not. This one still might be worse than Dinosaur, but we'll see.
Yeah, every time it probably also just matters what kind of mood I'm in or whatever. But those are definitely in the running for I think almost everybody's worst of Disney.
Yeah,
Dinosaur, Home on the Range, Chicken Little.
Yeah,
are in that discussion for sure. Yeah. So there you go. Every studio has it. So. This has been fun. I've had a good time talking about it.
I know. I have too. It's been great. It's been therapeutic. It's hard to see, a studio that you respect so much go through a rough patch. It was not a patch of heaven. It was kind of,
very rough patch. Not a good movie. And it's very, very weak. And, if I'm comparing it to the rest of the Disney canon, I would give it an F. If I'm comparing it to just animation in general, I'd probably give it a D-ish grade. But yeah, it's. I hope I never have to watch it again. Come on, life. I keep having to. I was saying yesterday, I'm like. I was I have to watch Home on the Range for a podcast. And now I'm reevaluating my life choices. It led me to watch this movie so many times. I watched it like 5 times. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah, which is
5
5 times too many. I probably had to watch it 4 or 5 times over my lifetime too, and once was more than enough.
More than enough.
Yeah.
At least it's short. We didn't mention that. It's only 76 minutes. So
I know, and thank goodness, because it honestly feels like it's 2.5 hours.
It does.
Too.
It really does.
And
so
it's such a shame. And again, when these films are bad, I always feel sad. It's like this missed opportunity, because again, the artistry done with Disney animated films, even when the films are bad, there's still this level of artistry that's so good.
Right.
And that's just so disappointing to me. And again, that's how I felt about a lot of these films of the last part of the Michael Eisner years, is that these films kind of made by committee, where the animation was always so good and the stories weren't.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking time to
thank you
to talk about this film with me, and
we can suffer together, right? Yeah. We weren't alone having to watch it. Like,
yeah, it was fun. So, where can people find you? Online?
I'm on Twitter at Stanford Clark, and then I have a movie blog, which is moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and YouTube. And if you like the podcast, put a review on iTunes. It really helps people to find out where it is when they're searching on iTunes. That's very helpful. So thanks very much. And let us know your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. We'd love to hear. And thanks again. And we'll talk again next month.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.